So I have some books I want to share with you that have helped me in developing my own style and developing my more early American primitive styles. The first one is Daring to Be Yourself by Alexandra Stoddard. She is now in her early 80s. She has written so many books on making a beautiful home, making a beautiful life. She's an interior decorator, and she eventually moved in her 40s. She bought like her dream house, which was this darling old home about the age of mine, like 1780s or something. They moved into it, into Connecticut, and she started making it her own home, and she started writing all about the process. And I just think she's so wonderful. And she's just kind of my hero. And I think that any book, if you're trying to find a style or your style, she's a good read. Okay, the next book I want to introduce is our friend Judy Condon. And we know Judy Condon has written a ton of books, right? But I love this book. No, this is not one that I'm in or anybody that I know is in. It's just all about making sure that you get the right time period in your style. And I think that that museum could have benefited from this. There's all kinds of chapters in here on incongruity, inferior objects, imaginary occupants. You can see where Alice always has an imaginary occupant in her room, hooked rugs, grooming, garments. It's just a really helpful book if you want to nail down your style to a correct time period. I highly recommend it. And if you want to get any other of Judy Condon's books, they're full of decorating inspiration. So this is another man who put out books with decorating inspiration, Tim Tanner. And the title here is Early American Country Homes. It used to be, and it wasn't that many years ago, that anything that was primitive, colonial, early American was all considered country. And we have kind of pulled ourselves away from the country home idea. We now are more specific with primitive and colonial and early American. Country seems to be its own kind of venue. It's all kind of morphed and changed. Which brings me to this book, because this book is full of pictures of early American style homes from different areas of the country. But I noticed when I was looking at it that it looked really dated. And it's amazing to me because we always talk about primitive decorating not being dated, but you can date primitive decorating by the color choices that you choose, by some of the little tchotchkes that you have around. It really makes a difference. It's funny how we have kind of, even every decade has its own early American decorating style, even though we're all trying to decorate according to early American. I like to think as we've been progressing, we're getting more authentic. But I don't know. I mean, we might look at what we've done 20 years from now and go, oh my goodness, that was so totally the 2020s. I don't know. But I think the best way to look at pictures is on Pinterest because it's free and you can see more. You can see what the date is, so you can see how current the interiors are. All right, I'm going to go on to this book right now. Okay, this book, I call this the Bible. I mean, this is so amazing. It's your Bible for early American decorating. It's got all kinds of styles of furniture, redware, china, chairs. You name it, it's in here. And the thing about it is, it's going to tell you the dates that was made and was out there. And if you are trying to be very specific in your decorating and decorate in a time period, this is really handy to find out, did that chair exist in that time period? I love this book. You can only get this used. It is not in print anymore. I'm going to put any of the links in my description box, but this one might be hard to get, and I think if you're serious about a style, this is worth it. It's a great resource. It's not the kind of book you're going to sit down and read, you know, page by page, but it's fantastic. This, however, Our Own Snug Fireplace, is going to be a book that you're just going to read the whole thing through. And it's pretty good size, but this really talks about the New England early American life between the Revolution and the Civil War. And it draws on all kinds of really cool things like diaries and letters and wills and newspapers, and it really teaches you about the people during that time. I found this fascinating. In fact, I could relate to it so much because we live in an early American house, and they talked about a lot of the struggles in an early American house. And they even talked about using the beehive oven, that they only lit it up once a week because they didn't want to wear it out with the mortar between the bricks. If you kept heating it up in the cold and then it would go cold, it would cause the mortar to start to contract and expand. And then in time it would fall out, and then they'd have chimney fires and burn down their house. That was really informative to me since we use our beehive oven. So I don't use it a whole lot thinking about that. But this was an excellent book. I actually picked this up at Sturbridge Village. It's by Jane Nylander. I know she's written another book I want to get my hands on, but this is amazing. It's amazing. All right. More early American books at home. The American Family. This again was a used book. It was an amazing book. It was lovely. It was fun to look at. It really just goes through how the American family lived in the early American home and how the early American home changed due to the family and their needs. And I really thought a lot in this book about how things kind of converged from the early American life into the Victorian life. I thought a lot about the excess that the Victorian people had over the early American and the modestness. And it was because they started to gain wealth and they started to move ahead. So they started to just buy and put things all over. And then it got really cluttered. And does that sound familiar? Because I think we're doing that right now too. So anyway, I thought this was a really excellent book. And in the same vein, this one, A Documentary History of Early American Interiors, also very similar. And I use some of these more as reference books than just reading books, although this one was also a very interesting read. So those are good books for your early American life. Home Life in Colonial Days, easy read, really nice. I liked it. It really talks a lot about the utensils and the things that they used back in the early day. And it was the everyday customs of early America. It helped me understand some of my tools that I have in the house and what they would have used them for, and just kind of understand some more things about the early American lifestyle. I think if you want to travel back in time and have a period home or a period looking home, you want to know as much about that period as you can. I think being informed gives you a better interior. This is 1,000 Leagues of Blue. I'm just putting this in here because remember last summer I went to Nantucket, and yes, we are going to get those shows out at some point, but the 1,000 Leagues of Blue was a really hard book to get, and it's about Nantucket, and it's about a whaler who went rogue. And the whole story of how he went rogue, what he was doing, what his crew ended up doing, what ended up happening to him, what was going on with his wife back on Nantucket. It was fascinating read. So I share that with you. This is historical fiction, Hour of the Witch. I loved this book. It was fascinating. I couldn't put it down. It's all about a young woman who's married to an older man who is accused of being a witch. And all that she went through, I mean, it was insane. So, wow. I mean, it all started because she had a 3-pronged fork. Yeah, superstition was at its height back then. All right, this book, Kate Moore, The Woman They Could Not Silence. This is an interesting book. We bought it at Sturbridge Village. My husband was looking at it, and then I was looking at it, and then a woman came out of the store by us, and she goes, "Oh, that book is so good." And so we picked it up, and she was right. It is so good. This is about a woman who was a pastor's wife, and she started having her own opinions. Imagine that. She had her own opinions. And she got very outspoken in Sunday school. And her husband couldn't keep her quiet. And so he got very frustrated by that. So he convinced everybody in the church that she was insane. And at one point they came and they took her off to a mental insane asylum, which is what they did with a lot of women back in the day. They just locked them up because they couldn't shut them up. So very interesting read. Made me really, really glad that I live right now and that I was never taken away from my own set of beliefs or being outspoken. So I really liked this. Nathaniel Philbrick. I always want to call him Phil Nathaniel, or it's almost like two first names. But this guy is a genius. He's a fantastic writer. It's not historical fiction. It's just history. And it's fascinating. So I recommend him 100%. I actually met him once and had him sign one of my books, and I started just blah, 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 blah. I was like such a fangirl and I didn't even know what I was talking about, but his books are really good and I recommend them to you.